Your happiness is worth fighting for. Break free from trauma bonding and prioritize yourself. Trauma bonding is a psychological phenomenon that occurs when an individual develops a strong emotional connection with someone who has caused them harm or abuse. This connection is often based on the trauma that they have experienced together, and it can be incredibly difficult to break free from. In this video, we will explore the concept of trauma bonding and provide some strategies for breaking free from it. Trauma bonding occurs when an individual becomes emotionally attached to their abuser or someone who has caused them harm. This emotional attachment is often a result of the intense emotions that the individual experienced during the traumatic event. When an individual experiences trauma, their brain releases chemicals such as adrenaline and cortisol, which can create a powerful emotional bond with the person who caused the trauma. This bond can be incredibly difficult to break, as it can feel like the abuser is the only person who understands them. If you are experiencing trauma bonding, it is important to understand that it is not your fault. Trauma bonding is a natural response to trauma, and it can happen to anyone. However, it is also important to recognize that trauma bonding is not a healthy way to cope with trauma. In fact, it can be incredibly damaging to your mental health and well-being. So, how can you break free from trauma bonding? The first step is to recognize that it is happening. This can be difficult, as trauma bonding often feels like love or a deep emotional connection. However, it is important to remember that this connection is based on trauma, not love. Once you have recognized that you are experiencing trauma bonding, you can begin to take steps to break free from it. One way to break free from trauma bonding is to seek support from friends, family, or a therapist. Talking to someone who understands what you are going through can be incredibly helpful in breaking the emotional bond with your abuser. It is important to find someone who is supportive and non-judgmental, as this can help you feel safe and secure. Another way to break free from trauma bonding is to practice self-care. This can include things like exercise, meditation, or engaging in hobbies that bring you joy. It is important to take care of your physical and emotional needs, as this can help you feel more empowered and in control of your life. Finally, it is important to set boundaries with your abuser or the person who caused you harm. This can be difficult, but it is essential in breaking the emotional bond. You may need to cut off contact completely, or you may need to limit contact to certain situations. Whatever the case may be, it is important to set boundaries that are healthy for you. A real-world example of trauma bonding could be seen in someone who is in an abusive romantic relationship. The abusive partner may use tactics such as manipulation, gaslighting, and isolation to create a trauma bond with their victim. Despite the abuse, the victim may feel a strong attachment to the abuser because of the intermittent periods of love, affection, and even apologies that they receive. As a result of this trauma bond, the victim may struggle to leave the relationship or may find themselves going back to the abuser after attempting to leave. They may also blame themselves for the abuse and feel that they deserve it or that they are unable to find someone better. To break free from this trauma bond, the victim may need to seek support from friends, family, or a therapist. They may need to recognize that the abuse is not their fault and that they deserve to be treated with love and respect. It may also be necessary for the victim to end all contact with the abuser and take steps to ensure their safety, such as obtaining a restraining order or seeking shelter in a safe location. By doing so, they can begin to heal and build a new life free from the trauma bond. Another example of trauma bonding could be seen in a person who is in a cult. The cult leader may have used tactics such as isolation, fear, and love bombing to create a trauma bond with their followers. Despite the harm caused by the cult, the person may have a strong attachment to the group because they provided a sense of community, purpose, and belonging. As a result of this trauma bond, the person may struggle to leave the cult or may have difficulty adjusting to life outside of it. They may feel guilt, shame, or fear of punishment if they consider leaving, and they may have difficulty trusting others or forming new relationships. To break free from this trauma bond, the person may need to seek therapy or counseling to work through the trauma and learn healthier coping mechanisms. They may also need to distance themselves from the cult and any remaining members to avoid further harm. It may be necessary for the person to rebuild their social support network and find new sources of meaning and purpose in their life. By doing so, they can begin to heal and build a new life free from the trauma bond of the cult. In conclusion, trauma bonding can be a difficult and painful experience. However, it is important to remember that it is not your fault, and there are ways to break free from it. By recognizing that trauma bonding is happening, seeking support, practicing self-care, and setting boundaries, you can begin to heal and move forward from the trauma. Remember, you are not alone, and there is help available.